Om Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you so much, Lina, for beautiful darshan of Radha Krishna. Beautiful.
For Krishna's mercy, Prabhuji.
Krishna. Thank you. Really good. So I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Wanted to ask Ananda Leela. Oh, well, yeah, to take it away. There you go. So we are at the 18th chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam Puran, and this is where Parikshit Maharaj gets cursed by the Brahmin boy. So Shuni, his name is. And in terms of the English translation, Shavi, are you there? Puna Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Very good. Thank you so much. Fantastic. So, very good. Anandalila Mataji, you can start. You can do your invocation if you like.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Nityananda Chandram Patita Sharanadam Gauradam Tam Bhajeham Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shirvasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 18. Maharaja Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. Sutta Uvacha. Yo vai droniyastra viplusto na matur udare mritaha anugrahad bhagavataha Krishna shabhuta karmanaha.
Sri Sutta Goswami said, due to the mercy of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who acts wonderfully, Maharaj Parikshit, though struck by the weapon of the son of Drona in his mother's womb, could not be burned.
Brahma kopoti tadyastu takshakat prana viplavat na samumohuru bhayad bhagavati arpitasayaha.
Furthermore, Maharaj Parikshit was always consciously surrendered to the personality of Godhead, and therefore he was neither afraid nor overwhelmed by fear due to a snake bird which was to bite him because of the fury of a Brahman god.
Utsrija sarvatah sangam vinyata samsthitihi Vyasakir jahosisho Gangayam swam kalevaram.
Furthermore, after living all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to the son of Vyas, Shukadev Goswami, and thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead, and at last gave up his material body on the bank of Ganga.
Notamasloka vartanam jushatam tat kathamritam Syat sambhramunta kalepi smaratam tat padambujam.
This was so because those who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and who are constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, do not run the risk of having misconceptions even at the last moment of their lives.
तावत् कलिर्न प्रभवे प्रविष्टोऽपि ह सर्वतः यावत् ईशो महानुर्व्याम् आभिमन्यवैकरात्.
As long as the great powerful son of Abhimanyu remains the emperor of the world, there is no chance that the personality of Kali will flourish.
यस्मिन् अहनियर्ह्येव भगवान् उत्ससर्जगाम् तदैवेहानुवृतोऽसाव् अधर्म प्रभव कलिः.
The very day and moment the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, left this earth, the personality of Kali, who promotes all kinds of irreligious activities, came into this world.
नानु द्वेष्टि कलिं सम्राट् सारंग इव सारभूक् कुशलानि आसु सिद्ध्यन्ति नेतराणि कृतानि यत्.
Maharaj Parikshit was a realist, like the bees who only accept the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali.
किं नु बालेषु सूरेण कलिनाधिरभीरुना अप्रमतः प्रमत्तेषु यो वृको नृषु वर्तते.
Maharaj Parikshit considered that less intelligent men might find the personality of Kali to be very powerful, but that those who were self-controlled would have nothing to fear. The king was powerful like a tiger and took care for the foolish, careless person.
उपवर्णितम् एतद्वः पुण्यं पारीक्षितं मया वासुदेव कथोपेतम् आख्यानं यद् अपृच्छत.
O sages, as you did ask me, now I have described almost everything regarding the narrations about Lord Krishna in connection with the history of the pious Maharaj Parikshit.
याः कथा भगवतः कथनीयोरुकर्मणः गुणकर्माश्रयाः पुंभिः संसेव्यास्ता बुभुषुभिः.
Those who are desirous of achieving complete perfection in life must submissively hear all topics that are connected with the transcendental activities and qualities of the personality of Godhead, who acts wonderfully.
Thank you so much. That was really well read. So the topic is Maharaj Parikshit, or the chapter is called Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmin boy. So that happens a little later in the chapter. Firstly, Parikshit Maharaj's qualities are sort of discussed, first 10 verses. Sutta Goswami explains that the very moment Krishna left the planet, Kali came into this world. So that was the time for Kali to come. It's like the sun, when it sets, darkness comes. So the sun of Krishna was setting and the darkness of Kali entered. But King Parikshit was very powerful. He could actually, was so powerful, he could stop the advancement of Kali. But he also understood that it is the time of Kali to enter. So Parikshit Maharaj was a realist, like the bees who only accept the essence of a flower. So that's interesting comment by Sutta Goswami. In Kali Yuga, it's described that the name of the Brahmin, Shringi, that's right. Interesting name. And the Rishi's name was Samakarshi, was it? Something like that. Yeah, we'll come to that anyway. So the thing is, in Kali Yuga, it is said that if one has thoughts in one's mind, those thoughts, if they're good thoughts, you'll get the good karma. Just even by thinking good things, you get good karma. But on the other hand, if they're bad thoughts, negative thoughts, we won't get the karma unless we actually perform the act, the negative act, the sinful act. So this is different from other ages. In order to get the sin, you have to perform the act. So Maharaj Parikshit sort of understood that he knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali Yuga, auspicious things produce good effects immediately. So even just by thinking of something good, one gets a benefit straight away. Whereas inauspicious things will actually have to be performed. You actually have to do the bad act in order to get the bad karma. So Kali Yuga has that benefit. So you can do things with your mind. Imagine serving Krishna, serving the devotees, doing wonderful, wonderful activities, and you get the benefit of as if you've done it. It's extraordinary, actually. The king considered that less intelligent men may find Kali to be very powerful, but if one is self-controlled, then would have nothing to fear. And hence why he allowed Kali to reside in his residence, in his kingdom, sorry. So let's continue.
Rishaya uchuhu sutta jiva samaha somya sasvatir vishadam yashaha yastvam samsashi krishnasya marjanam amritam hinaha.
The good sages said, O grave Sutta Goswami, may you live many years and have eternal fame, for you are speaking very nicely about the activities of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This is just like nectar for mortal beings like us.
Karmani asmin anasvase dhuma dhumratmanam bhavan apayayati govinda padapadmasavam madhu.
We have just begun the performance of this fruitive activity, a sacrificial fire, without certainty of its result due to the many imperfections in our action. Our bodies have become black from the smoke, but we are factually pleased by the nectar of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, Govinda, which you are distributing.
Tulayamalavenapi na swargam na punarbhavam bhagavat sangi sangasya martyanam kim utasi saha.
The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter. And what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death?
को नाम तृप्येद्रसवे कथायां महतमेकान्तपरायणस्य नान्तं गुणानाम् अगुणस्य जग्मुर्योगेश्वराये भवपाद्ममुख्या.
The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, Govinda, is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings, and his transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such masters of mystic powers as Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Can anyone who is expert in relishing nectar, ras, ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about him?
तन्नो भवान् वै भगवत् प्रधानो महतमेकान्तपरायणस्य हरेरुदारं चरितं विशुद्धं शुश्रूषतां नो वितनोतु विद्वन्.
O Sutta Goswami, you are a learned and pure devotee of the Lord because the personality of Godhead is your chief object of service. Therefore, please describe to us the pastimes of the Lord, which are above all material conception, for we are anxious to receive such messages.
स वै महाभागवतः परीक्षित् येनापवर्गाख्यमदभ्रबुद्धिः ज्ञानेन वेयासखिसन्दितेन भेजे खगेन्द्रध्वजपादमूलम्.
O Sutta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyas, Srila Shukadev.
तन्नः परं पुण्यम् असंवृतार्थम् आख्यानं मच्चाद्भुतयोगनिष्ठम् आख्याह्यानन्ताचरितोपपानं परीक्षितं भागवताभिरामम्.
Thus, please narrate to us the narrations of the unlimited, for they are purifying and supreme. They were spoken to Maharaj Parikshit, and they are very dear to the pure devotees, being full of bhakti yoga.
Hare Krishna, great. So, let's take a little break there. The sages, they started performing a yajna, 1,000-year yajna, and in order to stop the effect of Kali Yuga, that was done actually for the benefit of us actually, because they knew Kali Yuga's power will be very strong. So they said to Sutta Goswami that they had just begun the performance of this fruitive activity. Of course, it wasn't quite a fruitive activity, it was to stop the effect of Kali Yuga, but they were being humble. A sacrificial fire without certainty of its result due to many imperfections in their actions. And actually, this is what Kali Yuga does. It brings this imperfection naturally. And Krishna says actually in the Bhagavad Gita that in the material world, every act is tainted with some imperfection. That's the way of this world. So we don't necessarily want to worry about being completely perfect because every act has some imperfection in it. No, so the idea isn't perfection, it is bhakti, it is devotion. So even an act which is full of fault, if it's done with devotion, then the Lord will see that devotion, the love in that act as opposed to the perfection of the act itself. So, for example, it said if you chant the verses, Sanskrit verses of the Bhagavad Gita, and there's some fault, there's some mistakes, because Sanskrit is not easy language, and we may not get the pronunciation completely correct. It doesn't matter, as long as we are trying to chant with devotion, with love, with some bhakti, then we're on the right path. Even chanting the Mahamantra, because it's not easy necessarily. Ram is very easy to chant, but Krishna, that is a little hard. Some people find it quite difficult to say that name. But even if they say it incorrectly, like the Chinese, they can't pronounce one particular letter in the name Krishna. They can't necessarily say Krishna as it is. But it doesn't matter, because the idea is it's not the pronunciation that is looked at, it's the bhakti. That is what Krishna focuses on. So their bodies, the sages' bodies, had become black from the smoke, but were factually, they were pleased by the nectar of the lotus feet of Govinda, which he, Sutta Goswami, being a devotee, is distributing, and they urged him, Sutta Goswami, to narrate the pastimes of the Lord. So wherever we do yajna, if there is not the chanting of the holy names, if there is not the narration of the pastimes of the holy name or pastimes of the Lord, then that yajna may not be complete, even if the mantras are chanted perfectly. Even if the mantras are chanted perfectly, because the Lord has perhaps been neglected, and hence the yajna may, even though it may be performed perfectly, may not be good enough. So let's continue.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, yes.
Sorry, can I ask a question, Prabhuji?
Yeah, of course.
So I didn't get, what yajna were they doing?
They were doing a 1,000-year yajna.
At Naimisharanya.
At the forest of Naimisharanya, in order to stop the effect of Kali Yuga.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really.
So, were they successful? 1,000 year? Is that?
Yeah, they did it. They did it for. There was 88,000 sages at that yajna.
This is the beginning of Kali Yuga.
Right at the beginning.
Wow.
So that's why the effect was a little less at that time.
Because I still feel, still we are pushed into Kali Yuga. I mean, with that, we shouldn't be pushed into Kali Yuga, I guess.
But Kali Yuga's time is there, and once the sun is set, darkness will prevail. Even if you have some torchlight, the batteries will run out at some point. So darkness is inevitable. So Kali Yuga is inevitable. But there are some amazing effects of Kali Yuga which we can take advantage of. And one of them is, because it's so bad in this age, the Lord becomes very kind to people like us, because he makes the process of getting to know him easier. So in Kali Yuga, it said, if you simply chant the holy names of the Lord, it's enough. That will give you all perfection. What they used to do, meditate thousands of years in Satya Yuga, or do great yajnas in Treta Yuga, or do glorious deity worship in Dwapara Yuga, is easily achieved by simply chanting the holy names in Kali Yuga.
That is the silver lining on the dark cloud, I should say.
Silver lining. You got it. Spot on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Sutta uvacha Aho vayam janma bhritodhyahasma vriddhanu vrittyapi viloma jatah doskulyam madhim vidhunoti sighram mahatamanam abhidhana yogaha.
Sri Sutta Goswami said, "O God, Although we are born in a mixed caste, we are still promoted in birthright simply by serving and following the great who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with such great souls, one can without delay cleanse oneself of all disqualifications resulting from lower births.
Kutaha punargranato nama tasya mahatamaikanta parayanasya yonanta shaktir bhagavanananto mahadgunadvadyamananta mahu.
And what to speak of those who are under the direction of the great devotees, chanting the holy name of the Unlimited, who has unlimited potency. The personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency and transcendental by attributes, is called Anant, unlimited.
Etavatalam nanusuchitena guner asamyanati sayanasya hitvetaran prathayato vibhurtir yasham dhrirenum jushatena bhipso.
It is now ascertained that He, the personality of Godhead, is unlimited, and there is none equal to Him. Consequently, no one can speak of Him adequately. Great demigods cannot obtain the favor of the goddess of fortune even by prayers, but this very goddess renders service unto the Lord, although He is unwilling to have such service.
Athapi yatpadanakhavasrishtam jagat virincho pahritarhanambaha sesham punati anyatamu mukundat konamaloke bhagavat padarthaha.
Who can be worthy of the name of the Supreme Lord but the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna? Brahmaji collected the water emanating from the nails of his feet in order to award it to Lord Shiva as a worshipful welcome. This very water, the Ganga, is purifying the whole universe, including Lord Shiva.
Yatranuraktaha sahasaiva dhira vyapohya dehadisu sanghamuddham vrajanti tatparamaham shamantyam yashmin ahimso pashamah swadharmaha.
Self-controlled persons who are attached to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna can all of a sudden give up the world of material attachment, including the gross body and subtle mind, and go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life, by which non-violence and renunciation are consequential.
Aham hi pristoryamano bhavadbhir achaksha atma vagamotra yavan nabha patanti atma samam patatrinas tatha samam vishnu gatim vipaschitaha.
O Rishis, who are as powerfully pure as the sun, I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Vishnu as far as my knowledge is concerned. As the birds fly in the sky as far as the capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as the realization allows.
Hare Krishna. So let's take a little break at that point. And Krishna's glories are described here. Sutta Goswami said that the personality of Godhead is unlimited and there is none equal to Him. Consequently, no one can speak of Him adequately. You can never reach the end of the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And He Himself, in fact, cannot do it either. His qualities are always increasing. So there's an example of this. One time in Dwarka, when the Lord was performing his pastimes there, he happened to see his reflection in the mirror. And when he looked at himself, he was thinking, who is this glorious personality? He didn't even recognize himself because his qualities and his attributes are always increasing. There's always a competition between the Lord and his qualities. His qualities are increasing. The Lord is, of course, the Lord. But this is the unlimited nature of the Supreme Lord. He's dynamic, as we are as well. The Atma is dynamic. Of course, at the moment, we're limited by this body. We're limited by the effects of the material world on us. In Kali Yuga, by the three modes of material nature is really dampening the effect the soul can have. But anyway, we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, a little spark. So just as he is unlimited, so we are to a certain degree in the same capacity, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, which is also amazing things. So consequently, no one can speak of him adequately. So no matter how much we try to glorify him, it's never going to be enough. Doesn't mean we don't try. We do try. We make the effort, and then it's up to him whether he's satisfied with our offering to him. He will try to describe, Sutta Goswami will try to describe the transcendental pastimes as far as his knowledge will allow. So this is the humility of the devotee will always come through. And he says this wonderful verse, as the birds flying in the sky as far as the capacity allows, so the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. So our Guru Maharaj used to often say that we should always associate with advanced devotees of the Lord in order to get the maximum benefit. If we associate with advanced devotees, then we will get, according to their knowledge, according to their advancement, we will also obtain spiritual knowledge. So it's very important. Let's see what's this. Oh yeah, that's Shuni. All right, let's go to the next.
एकदा धनुर्उद्यम्य विचरन् मृगयां वने मृगान् अनुगतः शान्तः शूधिदस्तृषितो भृशम् जलाशयम् अचक्षानः प्रविवेश तमाश्रमम् ददर्श मुनिम् आसीनम् Santam militalochanam.
Once upon a time, Maharaj Parikshit, while engaged in hunting in the forest with bow and arrows, became extremely fatigued, hungry and thirsty while following the stags. While searching for a reservoir of water, he entered the hermitage of the well-known Shamik Rishi and saw the sage sitting silently with closed eyes.
Pratirudhendriya prana manobuddhim uparatam thanatrayat param praptam brahma bhutam avikriyam.
The Muni's sense organs, breath, mind, and intelligence were all restrained from material activities, and he was situated in a trance apart from the three: wakefulness, dream, and unconsciousness, having achieved a transcendental position qualitatively equal with the Supreme Absolute.
Viprakirna jatachanam roravena jinena cha visushattalur uddakam tatha bhutam ayachata.
The sage, in meditation, was covered by the skin of a stag, and long compressed hair was scattered all over him. The king, whose palate was dry from thirst, asked him for water.
अलब्धात्रिना भूम्यादिर् असम्प्राप्तार्घ्य सुनृतः अवज्ञान्तम् इवात्मानं मन्यमानश्चुकोपः.
The king, not received by any formal welcome by means of being offered a seat, place, water, and sweet addresses, considered himself neglected, and so, thinking he, became angry.
अभूतपूर्वः सहसा क्षुत्रिभ्याम् अर्दितात्मनः ब्राह्मणं प्रति अभूत् ब्रह्मन् मत्सरो मन्युरेव च.
O Brahmins, the circumstances having distressed him with extreme hunger and thirst, the king directed toward the sage his anger and envy, which he had never before directed toward a Brahman.
सत्तु ब्रह्मर्षिरं से गतासं उरगं रुषा विनिर्गच्छन् धनुष्कोट्या निधाय पुरम् आगतः.
While leaving, the king, being so insulted, picked up a lifeless snake with his bow and angrily placed it on the shoulder of the sage. Then he returned to his palace.
एषा किं निभृता शेष करनो मिलिते क्षणः मृषा समाधिराहोस्मित् किं नु क्षत्रबन्धुभिः.
Upon returning, he began to contemplate and argue within himself whether the sage had actually been in meditation, with senses concentrated and eyes closed, or whether he had just been feigning trance just to avoid receiving a lower kshatriya.
So interesting. Parikshit Maharaj, he was in the forest hunting, and this is what Kshatriyas do. Sometimes they go to the forest and to make sure that their prowess is refined and still very sharp. They would hunt, and in the course of this, he became tired, hungry, thirsty. He was looking for water, and he entered the ashram of Samika Rishi. Samika Rishi was a great sage, and at that time he was in deep meditation. And when these sages meditated, this is at the beginning of Kali Yuga, so there was still this potency that the sages had. And Samika was one of them, that he could actually connect with the Supreme Lord through this meditation. And he was connected with the Supreme Lord. The king tried to bring Samika Rishi to full consciousness, or external consciousness. But the king, this Rishi, was so engrossed in meditation that he continued in his sadhana, in his bhakti. The king became angry because he was thirsty. Now, this is actually potentially the beginning of the effect of Kali Yuga, because the king had allowed Kali Yuga to stay in the 4 sinful places, the brothel, the drinking place, the pubs, and the whatever, where there's illicit relationships with men, women, right? And gambling, where there's gambling. So those 4 places. But Kali said, give me something else. And he said, okay, you can reside in gold.
No, maybe I will bring grape with me.
The king's helmet, crown, was made of gold. So Kali took shelter, entered this crown. And for a moment, literally a moment, Kali had an impact on the king. He was thirsty, he felt insulted, he was thinking, yes, you are a sage, and I am only a Kshatriya, so you're trying to ignore me now. I'm a lowly personality compared to you, great sage. But I am the king, I am the ruler of this whole world, and yet you are ignoring me? So he became angry. He wasn't properly received. So then, whilst leaving, he did this very small insult, very tiny insult. He picked up a lifeless snake, and he put it around the neck of the sage with his bow. And then he returned to his palace, and he was thinking, oh dear, have I made a mistake? Was the sage really in trance, or was he just pretending? So he doubted himself straight away. Okay.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
in that case, should we just, not wear gold, or should we just keep away from it?
Gold, only to the extent that one is very attached to the gold. And we know money causes a lot of friction, right? And gold sort of represents money. So we know in Kali Yuga, there's so many people who will cheat others to get money. So if one is attached to gold, money, then there will always going to be a problem. But if one is trying to, just live in live in a God-conscious way, live in a way that, look, I need money, but only I need as much as I need, whatever I need, I can use that money, but the rest I will use it for the Supreme Lord. In that consciousness, one is going to be protected. But in one sense, you're right, that if we do have gold, that will inevitably give rise to some of the qualities of Kali Yuga. Greed, it's a fine balance that you have to make, isn't it?
And it also gives rise to anxiety, you having to look after it properly, make sure it doesn't get stolen, all sorts of things. Nowadays you have to maybe put in a locker or have insurance, and things like that. So it does rise to anxiety. So I don't know, maybe, strike a balance that you only have as much as you need, not over endeavor to have a lot of gold.
True. Thank you, Prabhuji. So because when we were young, we had listened to this story. So I stayed away from gold as much as possible, but only for a certain period of age, we can keep away from it. But after that, it catches up, I guess.
Yeah, but I think because you've both been brought up in that tradition, and you got the samskars, I think you're pretty protected. Here also, it was inevitable that Kali would attack. Here, if this didn't happen, there would be no Bhagavatam. So, in one sense, it's the Lord's arrangement that Parikshit Maharaj was impacted like this.
True.
Thank you.
And also, for ladies, it's their pension pot as well. So, I know I said, it causes anxiety, but also, you have that security element to it as well.
Yeah, true, Mataji, true.
यस्य पुत्रोऽति तेजस्वी विहरन् बालकोरिभकै राज्ञाङ्घं प्रापितं ताथं श्रुत्वा तत्रेदमब्रवीत्.
The sage had a son who was very powerful, being a Brahman's son. While he was playing with inexperienced boys, he heard of his father's distress, which was occasioned by the king. Then and there the boy spoke as follows.
अहो अधर्मः पालानां पीव्नां बलिभुजामिव स्वामिनि अघं यदाशानां द्वारपानां सुनामिव.
The Brahman's son Shringi said, "Oh, just look at the sins of the rulers who, like crows and watchdogs at the door, perpetrate sins against their masters, contrary to the principles governing servants."
ब्राह्मणे क्षत्रबन्धुर्हि गृहपालो निरूपितः स कथं तद्गृहे द्वास्तः सभान्दं भोक्तुमर्हति.
The descendants of the kingly orders are definitely designated as watchdogs, and they must keep themselves at the door. On what grounds can dogs enter the house and claim to dine with the master on the same plate?
कृष्णगते भगवती शास्त्रे उत्पथगामिनां तद्भिन्नसेतुनद्याहं साश्मि पश्यत मे बलम्.
After the departure of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead and supreme ruler of everyone, these upstarts have flourished, our protector being gone. Therefore, I myself shall take up this matter and punish them. Just witness my power.
इति उक्त्वा रोस्ततां राक्षसो वयस्यान् ऋषिबालकः कौशिकीयाप उपस्पृश्य वाग्वज्रं विससर्जः.
The son of the Rishi, his eyes red hot with anger, touched the water of the river Kaushika while speaking to his playmates and discharged the following thunderbolt of words.
इति लङ्घितमर्यादं तक्षकः सप्तमेहनी दंक्षति स्म कुलाङ्गारम् सुदितो मे ततद्रुहम्.
The Brahman's son cursed the king thus. On the 7th day from today, a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of the dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit, because of his having broken the laws of etiquette by insulting my father.
So this is the pastime of Parikshit Maharaj putting the snake around the shoulder of Samika Rishi. So his son, he was very powerful, Shringi, but very immature as well. He was a young boy, the sage's son, Brahman's boy. His friends told him what happened. He found out and he became very angry, stating that now that Krishna's gone, the kings have become unruly. But this was a small mistake. This was not a big offense, but nonetheless, he cursed the king in a very dramatic way. Because he was so powerful, that curse also was powerful. On the 7th day from today, a snake bird will bite the king because of his breaking the laws of etiquette and insulting my father. So this misuse of his Brahmanical power is the beginning of the downfall of the Vedic system. So unfortunately, it's providence that it's happened, of course. If it hadn't happened, Bhagavatam wouldn't be here. But we also can see that the misuse of power can lead to a great king being dismantled from his position, and the impact of Kali Yuga having much more effect on this age. Okay, so the final bit now. Yeah.
ततोऽभ्येत्याश्रमं बालो गले सर्पकलेवरं पितरं वीक्ष्य मुक्तकण्ठोरुरोदः.
Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief, he cried very loudly.
सवा आङ्गिरसो ब्रह्मन् शुद्ध्वा सुतविलापनम् उन्मील्य सनकैर्नेत्रे दृष्ट्वा चांसे मृतोरगम्.
O Brahmanas, the Rishi, who was born in the family of Angira Muni, hearing his son crying, gradually opened his eyes and saw the dead snake around his neck.
विसृज्यतं च प्रपच्च वत्स कस्माद्धिरोदिसि केन वा ते प्रकृतम् इति उक्तः संज्ञाविदयत्.
He threw the dead snake aside and asked his son why he was crying, whether anyone had done him harm. On hearing this, the son explained to him what had happened.
निशम्य सप्तं मतदर्हं नरेन्द्रं सह ब्राह्मणो नात्मजमभ्यनन्दत्. अहो बतां हो महदत्यते कृतम् अल्प्यसि द्रोहाऊर्ध्वमुद्रितः.
The father heard from his son that the king had been cursed, although he should never have been condemned, for he was the best amongst all human beings. The Rishi did not congratulate his son, but on the contrary, began to repent, saying, "Alas, what a great sinful act was performed by my son. He was awarded heavy punishment for an insignificant offense."
न वै नरभिर्नरादेवं पराख्यं समातुमर्हसि अविपक्वबुद्धे यत्तेजसा दुर्विसहेन भुक्ता विनिर्भद्राणि अकुतो भया प्रजाः.
"O my boy, your intelligence is immature, and therefore you have no knowledge that the king, who is the best amongst human beings, is as good as the personality of Godhead. He is never to be placed on an equal footing with common men. The citizens of the state live in prosperity, being protected by his unsurpassable prowess.
अलक्ष्यमाने नरदेव नाम्नि रथाङ्गपाना वयमङ्गलोकः तदा हि चौरा प्रचुरो विनङ्क्षति अरक्ष्यमानो विवरूथ वक्षणात्.
My dear boy, the Lord who carries the wheel of a chariot is represented by the monarchical regime. And when this regime is abolished, the whole world becomes filled with thieves, who then at once vanquish the unprotected subjects like scattered lambs.
तदद्यनः पापम् उपेति अनन्वयम् यन्नष्टनाथस्य वसोर्विलुम्पकात् परस्परं भिनन्ति सपन्ति वृञ्जते पशून् स्त्रियोर्थान् पुरुदस्य भोजनाः.
Due to the termination of the monarchical regimes and the plundering of the people's wealth by rogues and thieves, there will be great social disruptions. People will be killed and injured, and animals and women will be stolen. And for all these sins, we shall be responsible.
तदार्यधर्मः प्रविलीयते निर्णाम् वर्णाश्रमाचारयुतस्त्रयीमयः ततोऽर्थकामाभिनिवेशितात्मनां सुनां कपीनामिव वर्णशङ्करः.
At that time, the people in general will fall systematically from the path of a progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagements of the castes and the orders of society and the Vedic injunctions. Thus, they will be more attracted to economic development for sense gratification, and as a result, there will be an unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys.
धर्मपालो नरपतिः स तु सम्राट् बृहच्छवः साक्षान् महाभागवतो राजर्षिर्हयमीधयात् क्षुत्रिश्रमयुतो दिनो नैवास्मच्चापमर्हति.
The Emperor Parikshit is a pious king. He is highly celebrated and is a first-class devotee of the personality of Godhead. He is a saint amongst royalty, and he has performed many host sacrifices. When such a king is tired and fatigued, being stricken with hunger and thirst, he does not at all deserve to be cursed.
अपापेषु स्वभृत्येषु बालेन पक्वबुद्धिना पापं कृतं तद् भगवान् सर्वात्मा क्षन्तुमर्हति.
Then the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy, who had no intelligence, and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate and who deserved to be protected.
तिरस्कृता विप्रलब्धाः सप्ताह क्षिप्ता हतापि नास्य तत् प्रतिकुर्वन्ति तद्भक्ताः प्रभवोभिः.
The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves.
इति पुत्र कृताघेन सोनुताप्तो महामुनिः स्वयं विप्रकृतो राज्ञा नैवाघं तत् अचिन्तयत्.
The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously.
प्रायसः साधवो लोके परे द्वन्द्वेषु युयोजिताः न व्यथन्ते न हर्षन्ते यत आत्मा गुणाश्रयः. हरे कृष्ण.
Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Well done. Anandalila, very beautifully read Sanskrit, and the English was very good as well. Shaivi and Punamataji, very good. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
So, 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So, the father, Samika Rishi, he found out, he heard from his son, because his son was so distressed. He was crying away, and his father came out of his meditation, and the son told him what happened, and that he had cursed the king. Now, instead of congratulating his boy, he told his son off. He should never have been condemned. Why? Because he is the best amongst all human beings. Yes, he may have made a small mistake. It doesn't matter. He's Raj Rishi. He's a saintly king. And he's protecting the whole world from Kali Yuga. And what have you done? So the Rishi did not congratulate his son. He told him he had committed himself a sinful act by cursing the king, because the punishment was too heavy for such an insignificant offense. And we saw text number 48, where Sutta Goswami explains that a devotee of the Lord, even if he's insulted, even if he's killed, yeah, or cheated, he doesn't exact revenge. Now, this sort of shows we can test this in our own lives, right? If something happens to us, we get cheated, how do we feel? Yeah, you want to get back at that person, give him a thumping. That perhaps shows that we may not be such advanced devotees as we think we are. The devotee understands that whatever happens, it's due to something they've done in the past. And it's also the Lord's mercy that it has happened. He understands that nothing will happen to him unless it's good for him. He understands that the Lord will only do that which is good for me. He won't let anything, because he's my loving Father, he's my ever well-wisher. He is my Lord, and he will always protect me. No matter what happens to me, it's for my own good. So that's why devotee doesn't look to seek revenge. It doesn't mean he doesn't defend himself. He can't defend him. He has the right to defend himself. But he won't necessarily take revenge. So the sage prayed to the Supreme Lord, please, my son has committed a terrible act of cursing Raj Rishi. Pardon this immature boy who has no intelligence and has committed the great sin of causing a person who is completely free from all sins and who was subordinate, who deserved to be protected. He has cursed him to die. So the Brahminical culture was very strong. They were far greater, far stronger from a spiritual point of view than the kings. They could easily, there was a king called Vishwamitra who tried to steal the Surabhi cow of Vasishta, but he was defeated by Vasishta Muni, even though Vishwamitra was a very powerful Kshatriya with a huge army. And Vasishta was on his own with Gomata. But yet, Vasishta was able to defeat Vishwamitra, who then realized the Brahminical power, and he wanted himself to become a Brahman, which eventually he did. So this boy was very powerful because his father was very powerful. But that power was misused, and they killed, they caused the death of a saintly king. So that's a sin. That's a sinful act. So that's the end of chapter 18. Anybody with any comments or any questions? Anything I'd like to ask or share? Oh, Surinder, anything you'd like to share?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat, everybody, Nitai Gaur Haribol, Sri Nityananda Chandram Patita Sharanadam Gauradam Tam Bhajiham. So I have a statement. We've heard this statement before, but I'll repeat it because it's a statement from Maharaj Parikshit. And he says, "O pure Brahmanas, may you kindly know me as a surrendered soul, and let Mother Ganges accept me as one whose heart is offered to Lord Krishna. Let the winged serpent, Takshaka, or whatever magical creation has been incited by the son of the Brahmana bite me immediately, if it so desires. May you all simply go on singing the glories of the Lord. Yes, so despite this calamity, which now Parikshit Maharaj is facing after being cursed by the young boy Shringi. So, so the example and advice given is that one should be absorbed in listening to Krishna Katha, Krishna Kirtan, like that. And there are a few things we can learn from this passage. There is Gauranga Mahaprabhu's instructions. So in this Leela, there is Parikshit Maharaj, Samikya Rishi, and Shringi. So they are all devotees of Krishna. And there are different gradations, levels of devotion, level of devotees. And of course, Parikshit Maharaj is a pure devotee, and Samika Rishi was also very advanced sage and devotee of Krishna. And it showed like a young boy, Shringi, who was a bit mature in his devotional path. And so the dealings among devotees, Gauranga Mahaprabhu has given general advice with the third verse of Sikshastakam. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna avanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. More, the advice we have to follow is we have to be humble, tolerant, and respectful, and do not expect honor in return. This should be in our dealings, and in that mood, in this way we can chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra always. So this is advice, Kirtanya Sadahari, to always chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Satatam Kirtayantomam. That is, we should chant the holy name of Krishna always. And so, also there is some advice in Prema Vivarta. Jagadananda Pandit has said that in our dealings, we should, he mentions three qualities, that we should be non-envious. We should not be envious, and we should not be inimical, and we should not be deceitful. So these three things he mentioned, Jagadananda Pandit. In the behavior of devotees, we should be free from deceitfulness, enviousness, and not to be inimical. And also in this Leela, also mentioned like when Parikshit Maharaj, he arrived at the hermitage of the Samikya Rishi, then he was very thirsty and hungry and like that, because of the effect of the golden crown on his head, the effect of Kali Yuga. Yeah. So in this way, the advice in Prapanajinamritam is say, the fundamental objective is to maintain constant remembrance of Sri Hari in every time, place, and circumstance. If persons engaged in the devotional service of Lord Hari are unable to obtain food and shelter despite their attempts, or if their acquisitions are lost or destroyed, they should, without anxiety, absorb their hearts deeply in the thoughts of Lord Hari. So these are a few of the instructions given in the scriptures. And in this way, it happened that Parikshit Maharaj has committed a little offense to Samikya Rishi. There is offense towards the Vaishnava can be with our mind, with words, spoken words, or in action. in this episode, like in this case, Parikshit Maharaj, he put a dead snake around the neck of the great Rishi. So he committed some offense to the Rishi with action. And we learn from this Leelas that we should never commit Vaishnava aparadh. And even Shringi, he didn't recognize the great qualification of Parikshit Maharaj being the pure devotee of Krishna. But Shringi, because of his immaturity, he did not recognize the that Parikshit Maharaj was such a great devotee, and he launched a curse towards Parikshit Maharaj to punish him. So that was also a sin, an offense he has committed. So in our dealings, we have to be very careful, and therefore the ultimate instruction of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, that we should be humble, tolerant, respectful, and do not expect honor. We should always try to follow this and always chant Hare Krishna. And also in the passage it mentioned like the bees in the beginning. The Rishi Munis were explaining and mentioned the bees. So there is a saying, flies seeks souls and bees seeks nectar. So the bees, it explained in the same verse that they are looking for the nectar from the flowers. So the Vaishnavas, the devotees of Krishna, we will try to get the nectar of Krishna Katha and Krishna Kirtan. Like that. Nitai Gaura Haribol Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing those drops of nectar. Very, very nice.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nitai Gaura.
Surinder Prabhu, thank you. Any other comments or any questions? Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, chapter 18 ki jai, ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Sunil.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.